it's happening. There are mines all over Africa that have been given to bulge-bracket multinationals, and these guys will tell you, we're investing $2 billion, Mr. President. We're not likely to make a profit in 10 years. That means for 10 years, that state, that nation does not get any tax revenue. It's those sort of things, and that is why there has to be a new business model, realistically. And I'm not just saying this because, you know, I'm trying to be difficult. I'm honestly saying this because I believe it's the only sustainable, it's the only way sustainable way forward. Because otherwise there's going to be chaos. Eventually, it may not be in our lifetimes, but somewhere down the road, you know, somebody's going to wake up and say, what happened? And then what, you know, and then where do we go from there? The PPP project is still on, and I think that if it can be done equitably between the custodians of the people and the investors, and there's an equitable distribution of the resources and the risks, so that way everybody gets to look at the books. So if the CEO says we haven't made a profit, then of course, you know, the stakeholders of the indigents can say, well, no, you know, we saw the books too. And that is what it all comes down to. This is not nuclear science. It's very, very simple. But somewhere in the mix, you know, either because of the poverty of ideas or because we're not cute enough or something is, you know, it's not quite gelling, you know, where, you know, you know, we're not getting to a win-win scenario.
As well. It's the first time we've had the pleasure of hosting Anna and the UK Africa Diaspora Engagement Initiative, so we're very excited to see you here this evening. Deloitte, for those of you who don't know us, we're not just an accountancy firm, we also perform consulting, audit, tax and corporate finance for large multinationals as well as small entrepreneurs. And I wish to make a small plug for an entrepreneurial initiative which we're going to be running with emerging market entrepreneurs in particular this summer. We take Africa very seriously at Deloitte, and for no small reason. I'm going to refer to the eminent economist Jim O'Neill, who created the acronym BRIC, when he said, if you look at the likely potential of the 11 largest African economies over the next 40 years, their combined GDP by 2050 could realistically reach more than $13 trillion, making them bigger than either Brazil or Russia. So we take the markets very seriously. I know that you do too. At Deloitte, we have over a couple of hundred Africans working for us here in our UK firms. We also have a presence in over 40 countries across Africa. And we work very closely with our various African firms on inbound and outbound engagements. I'm going to leave you finally with a little anecdote which I picked up as many of you were at our media conference last week. Someone showed this slide from 1992. The Economist looked at Africa and wrote a leading article about it, calling it the hopeless continent.
Okay, I'm Stephen Bailey-Smith. I've been asked to chair this evening at the last moment. I was a little bit cold, so you have to excuse my slightly nasal tones this evening. I head up research at Standard Bank, which is a South African bank that's been in Africa for 150 years. We also take Africa very seriously. We are the largest bank by capitalisation in Africa, and we have offices in 19 countries and have sort of branches in about another 5 or 6. I personally have been looking at African. I'm an economist by training, although I call myself a strategist more these days. I've been looking at Africa for probably 25 years, and I've spent probably the last 20 of those trying to persuade people that Africa should be seen as an investment destination rather than a place that is a recipient of aid. I used to lecture on the ethics of international aid many years ago. So I'm very sympathetic to the topic this evening, which is how do we encourage diaspora flows to invest in Africa? And I think the presupposition of that is that only with those investment flows will Africa really kind of deliver the sort of growth processes. I think most people accept that development, you know, aid assistance alone will never deliver the sort of development that we're after. So I think the discussion this evening is really around how we encourage those flows. I tend to speak more to international fund managers, and I can tell you over the last, I was a very strange misfit for much of my professional career. I was the guy in the corner that knew a lot about Africa that no one cared about. And over the last 5 years, that's actually changed dramatically. In fact, you know, I can pick up the phone and talk to any of the largest international fund managers, and they want to know, because Africa has, you know, emerged and come as an investment, as a genuine investment destination for the largest funds. I think we'll talk about a whole number of different areas that one can get involved in investing in Africa this evening, but that's my kind of area of specialisation. As the chair, I have the house rules, and the house rules I think are going to be that each of my kind of colleagues here will speak for, I think, 10 minutes, if we can hold you to that, and then we will open up the panel for discussion. I think probably the discussion that's the more interesting sort of part of the evening.
I'm here as chairman of the British African Business Alliance. Like many of us, I have a night job and a day job. Just at the moment, I can't work out which is which. I'm also chief executive of a thing called the Rainbow Interchange Group, which is a combination of international money transfer together with financial inclusion, together with sophisticated currency management opportunities for affluent people. I was invited in November to address a topic which was called Harnessing the Diaspora, and I sat there with my pen poised, writing H, and I didn't go any further. I changed it, I crossed it out, and I put inspiring the diaspora. To drive investment, enterprise, or is that enterprise development? I'm sure there's a comma, or there should be a comma, or a comma in brackets, and jobs in Africa. And it's very interesting to hear some of the things that Jibril is talking about there, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the other panelists later. I think when you're talking about business, business is about cash flow. And my starting point on this is, if you could imagine a world where there are no bank accounts, no standing orders, no direct debits, and all payments have to be made and received in cash, there's not a lot of time for doing any work. Imagine the same place has interest rates where a good business loan is 20%, and average loans can be 40 to 60, and if you're unlucky, you can go up to 200%. So microfinance, where sending money is difficult, risky, and expensive. I heard a wonderful thing about sending money. You put the money with an elastic band and an address label round a Coca-Cola bottle, and you give it to the bus driver. And it gets to your village, and he gives it to your mother. Now, really, this is the 21st century. And if we're talking about business, we need to be talking about the ability to secure cash flow. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about a small micro business or whether you're talking about Unilever losing a truck and the goods in the bush and the money that was being collected as it went round. We've really got to look at this very, very seriously. And now I'll take my rainbow hat off. The British African Business Alliance is a diaspora-led initiative. It's privately funded and it's commercially driven as a communications hub. We're aimed at improving the communications of business opportunities between diaspora communities in the UK. We want to draw together the business leaders from the 54 different countries and get them to share ideas and opportunities. So imagine Africa surrounded by the Circle Line, and that would really give you a picture of Baba in England. Businesses in the UK and Africa, those organisations involved in supporting commercial and development projects. And our definition would say, if the project creates a job, it's a commercial project. It doesn't matter whether it's funded by a charity or whoever. And as a communications hub, these are some of the groups that we'd like to bring together. Starting in the top right-hand corner, the CBI the IOD and the Chambers of Commerce bring together 1 million British businesses. They have very little interface with the African community in the UK other than through direct employment. The diaspora networks, the British Africans, the British African diplomats, African businesses, African business networks, and very importantly, the Africa-friendly investment community. UK-based NGOs, UK consultants. We hear a lot about the unemployment figures at the moment. Are they understated is the question I would ask. Are there another 600,000 consultants who haven't got down to the job centre yet because they're still working through their redundancy payment? What can those people do to contribute to Africa? How do we invite them? How do we get them into a situation where they're not looking at famine and death and war, and they're looking at business opportunity? One of the dynamic projects that we have is what we call the Baba Business Pipeline. Those of you who are on our mailing list will have received the updated version this afternoon. Currently there are 62 projects on it. If we can get it to 100, I believe it could go to the 240,000 members of the CBI who don't actually focus on Africa at the moment. They're focused on BRICS. 62 projects out of 54 countries. We've got a long way to go. But if we can introduce investors and entrepreneurs, if we can introduce business partners, if we can find roles for those consultants to play, optimise business, and if we can put the mentors in place, whether they're British or African or British African or African British, I'm not bothered. It's easy to put a project on there, it's free. You complete a project sheet that you download from the website, and there are some of the things that we're talking about. Do you remember Charles and Camilla got attacked in their car in Regent Street because the walkie-talkie system their security team was using was different from the walkie-talkie system that the rioters were using? This one, sorry, that one up there, Security Communication Systems, is a new company. They've got new software. They take that out. So think of it in an African context, the ambulance and the police and the fire brigade on the same system. That would be good. In November, we mailed the business pipeline. It had 39 projects. We made 26 business inquiries and 19 introductions. There is a huge demand for help, assistance, investment, partnership coming out of the diaspora community. And when I say we're diaspora-led, these projects are coming from people who know about what British African is doing, and they're bringing them forward. Governance. How do we work out who we're dealing with? We've put together a qualified business partner form. You could put your company name in the top there, and some of you would score quite highly because you produce reports and accounts, and you can provide bankers' references, and you have a business plan and various other things. This is a combination between a scoring sheet and a hurdle sheet. Looking at it, you can also see how you could improve your performance and your attractiveness to a business partner or an investor. I put some arbitrary points on there. We've got one organisation looking for 40 million on the business pipeline at the moment. I think they're at about 20. And he went through that and said, David, I think we get to 90%. I'm not too worried about the people who can score about 90%. I'd like the 30%ers to get to 50 and the 50 to 80. When we're talking about development, I think we need to move on from competitive advantage. I coined a phrase last year, the year before, collaborative advantage. I've spent 30 years working in marketing, protecting secrets and taking commercial advantage out of what the companies I've worked for know and produce. In Africa, we need to look at collaborative advantage. How do we take a proven business model and share it?